In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to cut and sew a beautiful layered tiered lace gown with a trendy lace edge V neckline. This elegant design is perfect for weddings or special occasions. So whether you're a beginner or an intermediate sewist, you'll learn simple steps to achieve this gorgeous design. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to Easy Sewing with Taic, your go-to space for stylish, simple and beginner-friendly sewing tutorials. To my amazing returning subscribers, thank you for always being here. Your support means a lot to me. And if you're new here, I am Taiwo and I'm so glad that you stopped by. I promise you will love it here. So grab your tools and let's get started. Before we go ahead and start drafting, let's divide this style into three parts aside the sleeve. So the part labeled 1 is the upper bodice, while the part labeled 2 is the midsection or the skirt part. Then the part labeled 3 is the layered section or the tiered or gypsy section. So when I mentioned that we're about to start drafting 1, 2 or 3, you would understand what I'm saying. And here's the fabric that we're working with today. It's a white lace fabric and it is 5 yards. Ordinarily, we'll have drafted and cut directly on the fabric, but because it is white and for tutorial purpose, so you can see and understand properly, we'll be making use of our pattern paper. Now, starting off with the part labeled 2, that is the midsection or the skirt part of this dress. So you can see that it is starting from the half length, that is the true waist. And the half length that we're working with is 18 inches. This is for a plus size. And the hip line is 29 inches, while the above knee measurement is 41 inches. All right. So I just went ahead to mark out all the lines this way. On the waistline, I went ahead to impute the waist measurement divided by 4. The waist measurement that we're working with is 48 inches, while on the hip line, I went ahead to impute the hip measurement divided by 4, which is 50 inches. Then at the bottom that I subtracted 3 inches from the hip measurement. I divided what I had by 4 and I marked it as well. After which I went ahead to connect the 3 points this way. Also note that I will not be adding the allowance on this pattern paper, but I'll be adding it when we are transferring it to the fabric. Now at the waist that way, just come down by ½ inch, then you want to slant it this way. This is only for the front. I proceeded to label the pattern and add necessary information. Then I went ahead to cut it out. So I'll be using this front pattern to cut out both the front and the back. Now let's go ahead and draft the pattern for the upper bodice, the part labeled 1. Starting from the start point or the shoulder line, I went ahead to impute all my vertical measurements, which is the chest line and the half length. Also, as we progress, I will be imputing the bust point as well when I need to draft out the dart. But I went ahead to mark out the chest line and the waistline or half length, which is 18 inches. The formula to get your chest line will be showing on the screen. So on that start point line, I went ahead to impute the shoulder measurement divided by 2. The shoulder measurement that we're working with is 19 inches. I imputed what I had on the start point line and also on the chest line. Then I ruled a straight line this way. Moving on, I marked out the neckline width, which is 3.5. I came down by 1 inch from the start point line for the shoulder slope. Moving on, I went ahead to impute the neck depth for the front, which is 7 inches, and I connected it to 3.5 neck width measurements that we have there already. On the chest line, I went ahead to impute the bust measurement divided by 4. I marked it and I came up by 2 inches and I came in by ½ inch, just the regular way we draft our armhole on this channel already. So I connected the 3 points together this way. And on the half length or the waistline, I went ahead to impute the waist measurement divided by 4 and I marked it out and I just went ahead to connect it to the bust measurement this way. So you can go ahead and measure out your bust point line, or you come down by 2 inches from the chest line, and starting from that line, just go ahead and measure out the bust span divided by 2. The bust span that we're working with is 9 inches. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. Then come out by half inch on both sides. Just follow through with what you can see on the screen, and you just want to connect it to that bust point line. Moving on, so I want the front part of this outfit to have the princess that style line. I went ahead to divide what I have there into two, then I just connected it this way. Just follow through with what you can see on the screen. It is easy. This is not a bustier princess that. This is just a regular princess that style line. Alright. The next thing I did was to replace the 1 inch that we have taken out for the dart. You need to replace it so that there will be no shortage in the measurement, and that is it for the front pattern. But I want to use this pattern to draft out the back too. So I went ahead to input the back neckline, the neck depth, which is 2 inches, and it's just a U-shaped neckline. So I went ahead to draft that out that way. Moving on, I went ahead to draft out the back arm. Also, I divided what I added into two. Then I just connected the 3 points together like so with the blue marker. So that's the line I'm connecting now is the back armhole. So off camera, I went ahead to add important information to this pattern, where I will be adding allowances to. You will get to see it when we're transferring this pattern to the fabric. All right, that is why I did not bother to show you the process. Then I went ahead to cut it out. And now it's time to transfer our patterns to the fabric. So I'll be using this front skirt pattern to draft out the back. All I need to do is to add the zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. I added half-inch joining allowance at the upper part. Then I added 1.5 inch sewing allowance at the sides as well. That is where I'm marking right now. Then I added half-inch at the bottom too, to join it to the tiered or the layered part. Okay, the half-inch at the upper part is to join it to the upper bodice. So now that I'm done with this, I will just go ahead and cut it out. And I want you to take note of how I folded my fabric. That is because I need this scallop edge, this selvage edge rather, for the pleat, for the layer part. That is why I decided to fold my fabric this way. Now, to use the same pattern to cut out the front, I'll go ahead and trim off the half-inch slant that I have going on there. That is only for the front. Then I went ahead to add half-inch allowance to the upper part, just like I did for the back. The 1.5 inch allowance at the side and the half-inch at the bottom. The difference is just that the back has a zipper allowance. Alright, and the back part is divided into two, while the front is on fold. Moving back to the upper bodice, to use that pattern to cut out the back, I have to reduce the length because the back half length is shorter than the front half length by 2 inches. So I reduced the length that I have there by 1.5. You would see how I would remove the remaining half-inch. Okay, so the front half length and the back half length is usually different because of the bust bulge. Alright, so I was just finding the best way to place my pattern to maximize fabric, especially to maximize the part that I will be using for the layered part. Okay, so I went ahead to add half-inch at the bottom this way. I added the zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. I added half-inch to the shoulder area for the joining. Then I added 1.5 inches to the side, and I went ahead to cut it out this way. And in order to eliminate zipper bulge, I came in by half-inch from the zipper allowance and I cut it out this way. That half-inch, I had already added it to the side when I was adding allowance. Okay, now to completely impute the back half length, you know it is still half-inch long because I just removed 1.5 inches from the pattern. I'll go ahead and come up by ½ inch from the zipper area like that and slant it towards the dart leg. After which I went ahead to notch the dart leg so that when sewing it will be easier to sew the dart. And that is it for the back. Then to use this pattern to cut out the front, I have to cut out the front neckline and the front armhole. Then I have to make sure that the sides of the front is reduced by the 1½ inches so that when we are joining the front and the back together, they will match up at the sides. So I extended the bust line this way. Then I measured 1.5 and I slanted it towards the bust dart. This is the bust pan and I'll be closing it off. So when I close this off, and I join the front and the back together, it is going to align. I'm going to show you, okay? After which I went ahead to cut out the style line, the princess dart style line, and the pattern is ready to be transferred to the fabric. So I want the V-shaped neckline to carry the lace edge, and there are different methods I can employ to achieve that. I have one on my channel already. Another one is to slant through that V line that way. Then you just want to move the scallop edge. But the type that I will be employing today is similar to the one that I have on my channel already. It's just similar, they are not the same. Okay, so I'm just going to slant the line. Just follow through what you can see. You can see how I slanted my line, right? Yes, you just want to go ahead and slant that line. We are going to cut through it pretty soon. Then you can see that I've added ½ inch to the bottom of this center front pattern. So I went ahead to slant the line this way. You don't want to slant through it though. Then you just want to move it this way. Move it till you are fine with where the V neckline is hanging on. Then I went ahead to cut it out this way, adding the ½ inch allowance at that part. After which I went ahead to notch this dart, notch it at the upper part and at the bottom part. Okay, then I added ½ inch allowance to the shoulder that way. So we'll be taking in this dart this way. By the time I take in this dart, you can see that the V shape automatically has formed, and we'll be having something like this when we are done sewing. After which I went ahead to cut out the side front. I added ½ inch allowance to the curvy part. I added the sewing allowance to the sides and ½ inch allowance to the bottom part. So when I place the front and the back together at the side, it is matching up, okay, because I took in the bust dart for the front pattern. So I've gone ahead to pin the dart this way so that it will be easy to sew when we get to the sewing machine. Moving on to the sleeve, I have already drafted the sleeve pattern. If you don't know how to draft your sleeve, then click on the link that's showing on your screen. It's going to take you to my sleeve tutorial, my basic sleeve tutorial, right? So because I want this to have a pleat, that is why I'm slanting my pattern this way and adding essays to that point. Then I'm just going to add ½ inch allowance around the curve that way, and I'll be adding allowance to the sides. Now for the part label 3. Okay, to know the width, you need the knee circumference, so you can multiply that by 1.5 or 2 inches. Especially if you want all this layered part to have the lace edge, you might be working with limited fabric. So you can even see from the style inspiration that the pleats are not that many. Okay, so multiplying by 1.5 or 2 inches will suffice for the wideness. Now for the length, you just want to subtract your full length from the knee length, which is 59 from 41, and we are left with 18 inches. So I have 18½ inches there, ½ inches to join it to the knee part. Okay, and then for the second layer, you just want to, you can use your discretion for the second layer. Just determine how short you want the second layer to be from the first layer. Okay, you can even place it this way to determine it, and you are good to go. So it depends on the amount of fabric that you have left. You can do as much as 2 or 3 layers. Okay, So starting off with the upper bodice, this is the dart that I had already pinned down. So like I mentioned on the cutting table, I will just start sewing it down as close as possible to the edge. I'll be sewing it off neatly like I am doing here in this video. And this is what I have. You can see how neat it is. You can stitch it down at the side. So this is the dart. You can go ahead and trim it off, then weave the rough edges, or you can leave it this way. Okay, so I decided to leave mine like this. And the next thing to do is to bring the side front and join it to one part of the center front this way. Remember that we added ½ inch sewing allowance to this side. Yes, just go ahead and join it like this. Just be patient and the joining would be neat and come out beautiful. And this is what I have so far. This is how it looks like at the front, and here's how it looks like at the back. You want to make sure that you trim off excesses, you weave it, and you iron it, especially on that same line. I repeated the same process for the second half of the front, and now that that is done, all I have to do is to place it together at the center front this way and start joining. You want to make sure that you double stitch when you are starting and when you are finishing each edge design. Okay, I will show you the reason why in a bit. In order to achieve a neat look, you need to cut off the thread that would be showing at the space in between each scallop edge design. And if you have not double stitched at the start and at the end, the what you sewed might come off easily. Okay, because we are cutting through those thread at the center. That is why it's advisable to double stitch when you are starting and finishing each of those edge design. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Moving on, now that we are done with the upper bodice, it's time to attach it to the midsection. Join both the first part and the second part together at the half length using ½ inch. Now this is what we have so far for the front. And for the back, I went ahead to finish off the neckline with a bias. I did not bother to show you that. I closed off the dart as well. Then I joined the upper part to the bottom part, and I have attached the zipper. Okay, it's quite easy. That's why I did not take you through the process of doing all of this. Now that the front and the back is ready, all I have to do is to join it at the shoulder. Now when you are joining it at the shoulder, don't join it this way. Make sure that that edge, that lace edge, it comes out a bit, okay, so that it does not affect the length of your shoulder, though this is optional. But if you make sure that it aligns, then there's every possibility that the front shoulder would be longer than the back. Okay, because of that excess scallop edge that has been added to the measurements. And the next thing I did after joining both the front and back together as the shoulder is to join it together at the side. So input the bust measurement, input the waist measurement, input the hip measurement and the hemline measurement, then join it together at the sides. All right, and this is what we have so far. The dress is starting to come together. Who else loves it when the dress starts to come together this way? You can already picture the final outlook. It's always my favorite part. Now let's continue. The next thing to do is to reshape the front armhole. Remember that we added excess to the armhole because of the princess style line that we were trying to achieve. So the first thing I did was to make sure that it is equal to the back armhole. Afterwards, I went ahead to reduce the front armhole by going in by ¼ inch, or you can go in by the initial ½ inch. Okay, now that I'm done trimming the armhole, it's time to attach the sleeve. So here's the sleeve. I just joined it together at the sides this way. Remember that I'll be adding a pleat. So this is how I'm going to attach my sleeve, and I'm going to start joining it together at that part all the way to the shoulder. I won't be starting from the shoulder this time because there's a pleat at the shoulder. Okay, so when I'm 1 inch away from the shoulder line joining, I will start making my pleats. So if you have watched up to this point and you are yet to subscribe, please hit that subscribe button so that you do not forget, and give this video a thumbs up if you like what you've been seeing so far. Also, don't hesitate to share with your friends and other sewing enthusiasts. All right, thank you. And here is what the sleeves looks like when I was done fixing it. So the next thing to do is to start attaching the layered part, that is the bottom part. So I'll be starting off with the very first layer, the longest one, which is the 18.5 inches. So I'm just making minimal pleats, the type that was originally made in the style inspiration. If you look closely, you can see that the pleats are minimal, so it depends on the amount of fabric that you have left that still has the lace edge design. So I make sure that the joining of that first layer part, it is ending at the center back. Okay, so this is me just joining it from the top to the bottom, and this is what I have so far. This is what I have after joining the first layer, and now it's time to join the second layer. And to do that, I came up by 5 inches from the neckline. I ruled a straight line using the blue marker. That is where I'm going to attach the second layer to. Okay, so this is how it's going to look like at the end of the day. Yours does not necessarily have to be this way. It can be 2 inches above the neckline. It depends on how you want the layered part to look like. It depends on how many layers that you are working with and all of that. But this is where I am attaching the second layer to. So I'll be attaching it this way. The scallop edge will be facing the upper part first, so that by the time I'm done attaching it, the scallop edge will now be facing the lower part, so that all this place that I'm sewing would be enclosed. It would not show at all. I hope you understand that. So I decided to allow the second layer to be really full because I'm working with a plus size and I'm not sure how that scanted pleat would look like at the end of the day. So that is why I have 2 layers and not 3 layers. This is what I have. You can see how full and beautiful the upper layer is, and here is the end result. And that's it, sewing fam. A beautiful layered lace gown is ready. Isn't it beautiful? So if you've learned something new today, if you enjoyed the tutorial, please drop a comment. It can even be an emoji. Let me know that you actually learned something new today. And I always love reading your thoughts and seeing your progress. Don't forget to like as well, share and subscribe so you don't miss our next project together. Till next time, keep creating, keep learning, and remember, every stitch brings you closer to your dream design. See you in the next tutorial. Bye.